My name is Alica Fuks, and all my friends call me Alice. I am a near-death experiencer and energy healer. I live in New Jersey, but I was born and raised in Slovakia. I am Hungarian descent as well, so I grew up bilingual, speaking both Hungarian and Slovak. And later in life, about 20 years ago, when I moved here to US, English became my third language. So when I was visiting my sister in the US for the first time, I became very sick. I drank contaminated water, and it instantly, I became sick the same day. I was throwing up. I had diarrhea, just losing too much fluids. And the idea was, it was a weekend, that we're going to go to the doctor or follow up with the doctor on Monday. But it escalated rather fastly, and by Sunday night, I fainted, I passed out. So about 4 o'clock, it was Sunday morning, early in the morning, I got up to go to the bathroom. At this point, I was really exhausted from lack of sleep and lack of food and water. And I just fainted. I collapsed on bedroom floor. And my husband, who heard Big Bang, he was sleeping, but he heard some noise. He got up and he was starting, or, jumped, and he saw that I'm unresponsive. He was really, really scared that I died. And when I woke up, he actually told me, you really scared me because I thought you were dead. And I'm like, I was. I found myself instantly in this beautiful light. It was brighter than the sun, and it was very welcoming. I gently looked back, like I looked back on the bedroom floor, and I saw my body laying there, and I knew I'm leaving my body behind, but this light was so inviting and so loving. I just had to go. It felt like I'm going home. And as I'm walking towards this light, I see this beautiful angel-like being walking toward me. And I knew this is an angel of God. At the same time, as I'm walking towards this light, I'm having these flashbacks, these memories, but they are too much. There's almost like my entire life is happening in a fraction of the second. It kind of stops and zooms in at certain happy moments, actually. So I remembered happy moments with my husband, then it zoomed in again. It was some happy memory of it when we were children, and my sister, and we really were hugging each other. And then I was a baby. And then something interesting happened. After that, it jumped again. And I was no longer Alice. I was this 16-year-old boy. And I'm looking at my hands, and I know I am still Alice, but I am this boy as well. And I was dying in that moment. I could have maybe was 14, 15-year-old, and I'm dying of hunger. I believe I was in a concentration camp, possibly Second World War. When I was in that state, I wasn't really thinking it's the First War, Second War. I knew it's a war, but most importantly, I was hungry. I was very hungry. And then there was someone around me, and I looked up, and it was my father. But it wasn't just my father, it was my husband. When I looked into his eyes, I recognized that it is my husband in current life. And there was so much love in his eyes. He every piece of food he could get his hands on, he would save it for me. He would never eat anything, so at least one of us survives. We both die at the end. And the interesting part about this, I guess, is that my husband to this date, on some level, maybe he knows it or not, on subconscious level, when we sit down, and we both love food, when we sit down to eat, he will not touch the food until I have the first bite. And it makes him very joyful and happy when I eat. Then from there, I jump again in a moment of death. When I die as a young boy in a concentration camp, I'm a new life again. This time, I'm this very young lady, very fair skin, long red hair. And I remember walking outside, and I have a hard time breathing. I was dying again. I had some sort of disease, high fever, and I would sneak out in the morning to cool off in the grass. And that's what I was doing. I was laying down for the last time, and I believe I was dying again. And I had this sense of so much missed opportunities, like life missed, but the light was calling me again, like, it's okay. Like, you did miss a mark, miss this time, but it's fine. And I had this later, like, when I tuned in into this lifetime I was this lady who had great power, so to speak, because I had great education. My father made sure that I'm highly educated, but in time period that I was living in, which was around 1700, it was very unusual for a woman to have education, and women were treated sort of like a property, and I was to be married off, and I knew this is wrong, and I did have a means to move an avalanche in collective consciousness, but I didn't do it. If I would have just followed my destiny that was given to me, then perhaps like history would be different, but I didn't. But again, they were okay with that. When I was returning home to the light, they were, it's okay, just come home. And then it jumps again. It's a next lifetime, and this time I'm a man, and I'm walking in on hot sun. It's desert. It's very hot. I'm looking down at my feet because I could feel the sand underneath my feet, and I know I'm this man. Again, I'm Alice, but I'm also this man, and the light is just calling me again. You know, Michael, Archangel Michael, the figure who was standing in the light, now calls upon me, and he says, Yaakov. And he calls again, second time, Yaakov. And I know I'm not a man. My name is not Jacob, yet he was calling me, and I know he was calling me. And then even louder, like his voice is actually very loud. It's almost like water, like some heavy waterfall, but very loving at the same time, like so forceful voice, but coming with so much love. Yaakov. And this time I come, and I know Archangel Michael is calling me. And my first reaction was to drop to my knees. You know, I'm understanding I'm here in the presence of God. This is a holy place, and I drop to my knees. And that's when Michael, it's almost like come closer, and he says, do not kneel before me. You and I are one. I am you, and you am I. And I felt it. It's not only the words he was saying. I felt the oneness. I begin to feel the light, that it's all around me, and it's very loving. And I was part of that light, and the light was part of me. And If there is any definition of God, that would be it for me. I felt tremendously loved. Uh, I have mistakes, I have errors, sins, so to speak. And against all of that, I was loved tremendously. And as the angel tells me, do not kneel before me, he immediately like come closer and shrinks in a size. He is still very tall, at least 7, 8 feet, but he kind of like come to my size to let me know you and I are one. And in this moment, he hands me this beautiful sword, but it was on fire. It almost like it looked like iron that was taken out from the fire pit. And he a little forcefully giving it to me, like, take it. And my first idea, like, I'm not touching that. This is way too hot. But again, this force, like, but with so much love at the same time, like, take it and become who you are born to be. And I understand in that moment. I'll take the sword, I lift it up, and then he with hand gently pushes me back, and I gasp for the air on a bedroom floor, like coming back to life. And that's when my husband, like hovering over me, kind of like, what happened, honey? Like, did you faint it? And I'm like, how long was I out? And he's like, you scared me. Like, I thought you were dead. And I'm like, I was. When I found myself in a body again, and my husband was like, okay, this is it. Let's go to the emergency room. But I was like, no, I'm healed. And at first he was like, what are you talking about? I like, no, let's go. And we're like, no, the angel told me I'm fine. And I had this sense that everything was in order. Everything was the way it was supposed to be. This experience, sickness, it was just there. So I can go back for home, even just for a short time, but it was necessary. So again, I'm telling my husband, no, I'm healed, I'm fine. And to show him that, like, I take a glass of water and I drink, and which I couldn't do for 3 days because I got really upset, like my stomach got really upset. So, and I was fine. I was weak for a few more days, but the sickness was gone. What happened shortly afterwards, I would say that 3 things happened almost instantly. I became very sensitive to the energies, intuitive. Almost overnight, I became psychic. It's hard to describe because I am an accountant and bookkeeper. I am really left-brained, so my first thought that, my brain probably got somewhat injured and I'm hallucinating. But more and more what I saw cannot be really explained by science, but it was so much evidence for me. I needed no more convincing. So that was one of the changes. I became extremely psychic, very intuitive. Energy was flowing in and out of my hands as if almost I could command the vibration at will. Another thing that happened to me, I became a different person. My personality changed in a sense. I became extremely loving. I was not a bad person, but I was very like goal-oriented, career-oriented. And when I came back, I still had my vision for my future. I was fairly young, but material stuff was no longer that important. What was important was the love I felt when I was in that light. In a light, I was part of that big pool of energy that I would describe as a God. And God was with me, and I was with that. And it was very loving towards me. And I had mistakes, I had errors, and I was loved regardless. So, what I brought back with me, I felt the same love towards everyone now. Like, it was almost to the point it was silly, but I just looked at people and I just loved them very much. It's like, how can I not love you? I felt your suffering. I see your love inside of. How can I not love you? Just as, the light loves me, I love you the same. And so that was the second change that happened to me. And the third one would be that I became very spiritual. I was now driven by this new knowledge. I grew up as a very I grew up in a Christian family, so I had some sort of understanding, or I had some sort of faith, but I was not religious by any means or spiritual. But now there was this understanding that I am much more than Alice. I am Jacob. I am also this noble lady in Ireland. I am also this little boy who's dying in concentration camp. I am much more than just Alice. And in that light, I was limitless. It was like I was expanding to all directions, but it had no end to it. And reincarnation, that concept that was not known to me before, now became part of my life. So my belief system went 180. I know that I know when I was in the light, something happened to me. When I was part of everything, when I was part of this light, something was happening that it's very hard to describe in emotion and in words, because there is no human words for what was happening. But as I was becoming this everything, that included information, and this information was light. And when I became like Alice again, it slowly unraveled itself. It was little by little was coming to the surface. When I would go sleep at night, I would have more memories, or more in-depth memories about the lifetime I saw there. A lifetime about when I was Jacob, a lifetime when I was the Irish lady. I actually recognized two of my sisters. In that lifetime, it was 5 of us, 5 girls, and one of the sister was a sister in my current lifetime, and another sister is my best friend in this current lifetime. I do not recognize who the 2 other sisters are yet, at least, but I did so more and more information was coming about those lifetimes and other lifetimes. I became almost obsessed with reincarnations. And so after a while researching the topic, I came across that it is in fact happening to other people. And prior to this experience, the near-death experience I had, I did not know. In fact, I didn't know anything about reincarnation either. And more, I was being drawn to work as a hypnotherapist, as a past life regression therapist. I just needed the information and the download that happened to me, that needed to find the way that it's coming out. Because ultimately, what I learned on the other side, our purpose is to serve. And this was my way of serving. This was my way of bringing this to others. So shortly after my NDE, I started to have very vivid dreams. And my grandmother, who passed away grandmother from my father's side. We were not very close, but she would come in a dream and she would cry. And, again, it was in the beginning of my journey and trying to figure it out what's happening to me. So after 1 month of the same dream over and over, finally I found the courage in the dream to say it to her. So what do you want, Grandma? Like, why are you crying? And she showed me this tablet and it had a date on it. It was December 25. And I'm like, okay, Christmas. And she turns it again and she's like 10:10. And then she kind of tells me, you will have very tough year ahead of you. Both of your grandparents that we were very close to from my mom's side will pass away. And it became true. Both my grandparents passed on those days. I shared this information. I shared it with my mom, with my aunt. And they both stood behind me then. They're staying behind me now. And this was a piece of evidence. Again, science would fight you on this, call it pseudoscience. But for me, it was that one piece of information needed. What happened to me in the light must be true. If this is true, I cannot know the date of death for someone 1 year ahead. It cannot be coincidence, and it definitely cannot be coincidence in the case of two people. So for me, that was the beginning of my journey. When I was in the light, I felt as if I'm home. I'm not only this light and I'm being very much loved. I knew I am this spirit, and my body who's laying on this bedroom floor, it's just a byproduct of this life. Yet it's not like a small part. It's very important, and that's why we are looked up and loved so much, because in order for us to experience and go through the suffering that we experience in linear time, we give up a lot. We give up our home to go and experience emotions in time, and we really suffering is the fastest way of learning, but it's a lot of pain and a lot of trauma that we go through. And it's all valuable information that comes back to source, and the source expands. It's almost like when we breathe. When we like take a breath and we breathe out, it's the same with the soul and the light. When we come home, it's like this big breath and this new information. Oh, I learned this again. Oh, I see, I understand now. And let's do this again, and let's plan ahead. And in a different lifetime, I want to learn this now. And at the end of it, we do. Unfortunately, we create a lot of karmas along the way, or traumas that we don't really deal with in one life. So we kind of bring this back home unresolved, and then we end up with a lifetime when they're kind of, Alice, like, could you please take care of this and this and this? Like this Irish lady kind of died before her time, and like you were really hungry here in this concentration camp, but can you please take care of in this life, because you now gonna have this light in you and this understanding that you will be able to resolve this. So let's connect you with those memories. Let's connect you with those lifetimes, and let's bring it back home so we have understanding, and we can take this deep breath and expand even further than the limitless is. I want you to know that you are very loved. You are spirit, not your body or your mind. You are truly this light where we all come from. And you are very loved against all mistakes and all errors you have. You are very much loved by Source, that you are.